Hi everyone, it's testimony time. Whose idea was that? Oh yeah, it was mine. The reason I thought testimonies was because I thought we're a family and we're getting through this together, and I thought we'd all get to know each other a bit better. What's and all. You've probably all recently heard some of mine because I was supposed to do it and I was poorly, so Jill kindly read mine out. Can't remember what I said. Haven't looked back and haven't rehearsed this. I have been thinking the whole day, should I tell them that? Better not. Should I tell them that? Better not. But anyway, there's no point doing testimonies if you're not going to be honest, is there? So here we go. I became a Christian, get your brew. Leslie, get your hot water. Mine's hot water as well. Jill will be on hot water. I became a Christian when I was 14. Some of you might remember All the King's Men. They came into high school and I made a commitment. Started going to Baptist church and sailed away really to start with. It was amazing and incredible, and I can remember being in the hall at Trinity Baptist Church upstairs and walking across, clear as day, I can remember walking across the hall and thinking, how can you have a problem in your life if you've got Jesus? And then it went downhill really fast. As some of you are aware, I have OCD. I started with it when I was very young, and that was triggered really badly by becoming a Christian at the point where I read about the unforgivable sin. When I knew there was a sin that was unforgivable, allegedly, totally didn't understand the context of the Bible at that point, and you couldn't look things up online then, and I didn't really talk to anybody about it. Apart from one person who shall remain nameless, because a lot of you will know the person, I was really upset one day and said, I think I've committed the unforgivable sin. And said person said, well, never mind, if you go to hell, at least you can witness and nobody else will. Be careful what you say to people, be careful. So at that point, it was somebody I respected. I really thought I had done it. And so I never told anybody after that. So it became tough. I was tormented to the point of, I can remember banging my head on the glass in a bus stop because I just didn't understand what was happening, and all that was one of the triggers, but it didn't stay at that. Then I started thinking, if I thought bad things about people I loved, they would die. And so I continually started thinking bad things about my family, and I really thought they'd die. So I was a bit of a mess, really. And I had a lot of questions in them days. Like I said, there was no Google. And I started asking our youth pastor, he was sort of a youth pastor at the time, very knowledgeable, studied Hebrew and Greek, been to Bible school, had been an ordained minister. Again, I won't say names. And gradually he groomed me. That's what it was. Looking back, I didn't know that at the time. I was still very young. And one day he rang me up and said, can you come and see me? Which I did, didn't find anything strange about it. And he got hold of my hand and said, I believe it's God's will for us to be together. Even just saying that, my heart's gone into an irregular beat. And I believed him. He gave me scriptures at the time that seemed to back it up. I can't remember what most of them were. I remember him saying about Abraham and Sarah and how there was a big age gap. He was 30 years older than me. But I trusted him and I believed him. So then I think my OCD came into play again then, because I always felt not good enough, and that God didn't love me. At that point, I worried, if I'm not with this man, then God's really not going to love me? What if it's God's will for us to be together? So, and he told me that I wasn't allowed to tell anybody, which I didn't. So I was with him a few years, and then when I was 17, he said we were going to get married and I needed to go home and tell my family. So I did. I came home, and my mum sort of knew vaguely of him because obviously he was a youth pastor, and so I sort of mentioned him in passing and things like that, and we'd say hello when we saw him out and things, but obviously she didn't know there's anything more to it than that. So I came home, and I can remember my mum was in bed, and I remember sitting, sorry, my heart's still all over. I remember sitting on the edge of a bed and telling her, and she went mental, absolutely mental. Rang my dad at work. I can't remember why she was in bed. She must have been poorly, because my mum's never in bed through the day, but she must have been poorly. And she rang my dad at work, and we had a row and I left. And I remember seeing his car. He'd come home from work and was trolling the streets looking for me. And obviously he banned me from seeing him. I didn't tell him that it was, or my mum, that it was God's will for us to be together, because I didn't think they'd understand that. So they banned me from seeing him. And that's when things got more complicated really, because I had to see him in secret, because I was worried that, well, I believed it was God's will for me to be with him, and what would happen, would something bad happen to my family if I wasn't with him, and God wouldn't and couldn't love me. So it felt like by being with him and God loving him and him loving me, so I thought, that somehow meant that God loved me, because I didn't feel that God could just love me as I was. Anyway, so that was that, and that it took me a lot of years to get away from him. I'm trying to think how many years it took. Probably 20 years, maybe about 20 years. On and off, I had times when I had a bit more clarity, and I knew it wasn't right, and so I'd finish it and manage to stay away from him for months, and then I'd panic again. What if I have to be with him, and so I go backwards and forwards, until I met a vicar, Church of England vicar online, in a Christian chat room on AOL. It was a long time ago, who was up in Durham, and he used to take me up to see her for allegedly counselling, because he used to say I was demon possessed and blah blah. Anyway, so I used to go up and see her, and I eventually disclosed to her what was going on, and she helped me get away from him. Fast forward to about 12 months after that, and I ended up in a relationship with her. I was with her for almost 10 years. She gave up her ministry, moved down to Colne. We lived together for a relatively short time, really, because she believed that it was fine to be in same-sex relationship and be a Christian, and I just couldn't put it together. I couldn't see how it was right, and so it caused quite a lot of problems, because again that triggered my OCD of if I'm in a wrong relationship, God can't love me. And she'd given a ministry up to be with me, and that was a lot of guilt on my part, and again worrying that have I caused someone to stumble. So eventually I finished that, and she moved away, and is now married to a man and back in ministry, praise God. And I felt lost, really lost. So I ended up becoming a medium. That happened by I'd sort of always been interested spiritually, and I didn't think I could have God. And anyway, I ended up going to Spiritualist Church and becoming a medium for quite a few years. And it was tough because I don't know if anybody's been to a Spiritualist Church, but not trying to be critical, but it's very competitive and not very nice. And if you're a good medium, they don't like it because they're jealous, and if you're a bad medium, they rip you to shreds. So that was tough, and also you become the centre of attention, which I don't know how my personality comes across really, but I'm a real introvert, and the thought of, my mum's always said, Nick, you don't look like an introvert, but I am, and being the centre of attention was so difficult for me that people would like want to cling to you, and they'd want messages all the time and treat you as somebody special, and I just found that unbearable. So I pulled away from that maybe about 2 years ago, maybe a bit longer. Stopped doing readings, although people would message me, and there were a couple of exceptions where people had committed suicide and things when I did it, but other than that I just stopped. And while I was a medium, every now and again I'd sit in bed at night and I'd put Christian TV on because I missed worship so much. I just missed worship. In between all that, I'd gone to New Life where Tony was pastor for a while, but I was physically ill as well. I'm not going to put everything into this, but I was physically ill as well, so in the end I couldn't keep going. But so at night I'd put Christian TV on, and there'd be some worship music on usually, and I'd feel really guilty all the time it was on, but I could just, when it was on, I could feel that burning, that burning in your heart where that after God. But I didn't pray or anything. I thought I'd been too bad. I thought God didn't love me. And then most of you know I met Tony in Asda just over 12 months ago. I think it was just after Christmas actually. And I was just coming out one door and he was coming in the other. And we've known each other for a long time. And I said, I'd been keeping an eye on. I knew it was at Barrowford Church, and I knew one day he would probably take over. And for me, in order for me to come back to church, it had to be somebody I knew, because of what had happened with this man who was in a position of authority. I couldn't have gone to a Christian church and felt safe unless I knew the person running it. So I knew he'd gone there, and I'd sort of, I remember Jill added me on Facebook before I even come into church. So I've been on the website and sort of had a look. Anyway, so he said to me, Nick, we're going to be running an Alpha course. Why don't you come? And I weren't for it at all. I was with my sister and Key. And I'm like, no, I can't go through that again. My anxiety, I struggle with agoraphobia and like PTSD as well. There's a lot of complications. I was in mental health services at the time, having trauma therapy, as most of you know. And I just thought, I can't do this again. I can't mentally go through in case it triggers my OCD. How am I going to cope with the amount of people and my agoraphobia and the PTSD? And it was just a nightmare. And I sort of said to Tony, yeah, that'd be great. Inside thinking, no chance, it's not happening. And Keith sort of said to me after, oh, come on, Nick, I need to get out and I'd like to meet new people, and why don't we go? And it took a few weeks, to be fair, and we ended up coming, I think, a couple of weeks before Alpha started. And it was horrendous. It was, my heart's all over again just talking about it. We sat at the end of a row, which I always do, in case I've got to leave, and I can remember sat there, I was sweating and my heart was all over, and I was dreading seeing anybody I knew, because if I had to stand and talk, I knew I'd go into a panic attack. And we managed a couple of times, and I can honestly say when I walked in, although I wanted to not speak to anybody, everybody, I've never known anybody be as friendly as our church. And everybody's sort of like, I can remember we walked in the wrong door, we walked in the front door, because I remember weighing it up and thinking, we can't go in the back door, because that's probably for like people that everybody knows. So we'll have to, we knew people have to go in the front door. And I remember Karen was playing her keyboard, and I don't know who else were there. And Karen just, her face lit up, and she was so warm and lovely. And I remember Jill coming up and me saying, have you added me on Facebook? And she said, yeah, and that was nice. And then obviously we stayed for Alpha, and that was hard, to sit around the table and have to speak and have to stay. I can remember clinging to the table and sweat was pouring off me. So I do apologise if I smelt for a few weeks. That's my anxiety. That's what happens with most people, isn't it? And I can remember it was either the second or third week. I think it was maybe the second week of Alpha. Just knowing that God, and my heart burned. Literally, it was like I was on fire on the inside, and I felt God calling me back. And I was scared. I was absolutely terrified, because I was so scared of triggering this sort of horrendous OCD again. Anyway, so I came back to God, got rid of all my mediumship stuff, burnt my business cards through, and whatever I did with them, can't remember. And I knew that it had to be, I couldn't have a foot in the world and a foot in God's camp. It just wouldn't work for me. It had to be a wholehearted thing. And it has been. I'm not saying it hasn't re-triggered my OCD. It has. I probably about, 8-9 weeks in, I was really bad for about 6 weeks. And I just had to keep going back to the word, going back to the word, going back to the word. This is the truth, this is my baby. This is, like sometime I'll lie at night and I'll fall asleep holding this. And it's not, I don't mean idolizing the Bible, but this is my truth, that whatever my body is saying, whatever my mind is saying, what does this say? And this overrides everything else for me, and that's my anchor. And Satan can find other ways in, because I don't know, about another 2 months after that, I started thinking, yeah, but what if it's not true? Because if it's not true and God's not there, then there's nothing. And I so desperately needed him. So, the lies are coming in, and but again, just renew my mind with the word of God. Just going back a bit, I wanted to say also, within about a month of coming back to God, I stopped the trauma therapy. It should have only gone on for a few weeks, but it ended up going on for nearly 6 months, because he didn't know what else to do with me. I was so bad, my PTSD was so bad. And so that stopped. It took a while to actually come out of services, because you've got to do things slowly, but I didn't have any more. As soon as I said I need to stop the trauma work, that stopped. It wasn't working. It was re-traumatizing me. For anybody that doesn't know, what you have to do is you say the things that have happened to you and you record it, and then you've got to keep listening to it over and over until it doesn't bother you anymore. Sorry, I'm going on a bit, aren't I? I'll wrap it up. But it wasn't working for me, so it was the last chance at the OK Corral. And this is what worked for me. Jesus worked for me. Do I still struggle? Anybody that knows me knows I still struggle, particularly with the agoraphobia. I've had it I got diagnosed when I was 14 with agoraphobia and didn't finish my schooling because of it. It's been around a long time. And so I'm still working on it. We don't have to have everything together and have no struggles. But what I do know is that Jesus is with me, that he does love me. Do I doubt that sometimes? Yeah, because that's my weakness. And Satan knows. He gets in like a snake in the grass, doesn't he? And he knows right where to hit us. But this is the answer. The word of God is the answer. Worship is amazing for me. Every day I read the word, every day I pray, and every day I worship. And on the odd occasion, and it is the odd occasion when that hasn't happened, I can feel my mental health and my spiritual health going down. I don't do it out of ritual. I do it out of passion for Jesus, and I'm so grateful to him. I don't know how I'd have got through this pandemic without him. I just thank God that this wasn't a surprise to him, that he knew, and he knew when I came back a year ago that this was going to come. And I'm so grateful to him. He's amazing. He's everything to me and always will be. Am I ashamed of falling away and doing some of the things I've done? Absolutely. But I won't let Satan condemn me and batter myself, because by doing that it makes me ineffective for Jesus. And I've done that as well. Don't go down that road. And I'm going to wrap it up because it's 20 minutes. I hope it's been all right, because I didn't rehearse it at all. I've just sort of waffled on really and been as honest as I can be. And I just want to thank you all. You've been amazing to me, and I don't want to cry. I'm not going to cry on camera. When I came to church, I felt so unlovable and so ashamed and so guilty that you all welcomed me with open arms, and not one person ever asked a question. None of you sort of said, what have you been doing, and where have you been, and are you living right? And you know, that is amazing, and that is the key. That if people had done that, I'd have run. I was so afraid and in such a mess that I'd have just run out the back door. But what you allowed was, you showed me Jesus, and by leading me to him, he convicted me of the things that needed to go, and he did. You know, all the things that, in the ways I wasn't living right, he dealt with one by one. And you all have supported me unconditionally, and you need to know how amazing you are and how much Jesus is present in our church. We are so blessed, and I feel so blessed to be part of this family, and I couldn't have got through this last 12 months coming out of mental health services. I've had so much support, and you're all amazing, every one of you. And I'm going to wrap it up now because I'm going to cry, and you've probably fallen asleep by now anyway. But thank you all, and I love every one of you, and you're amazing. See you soon, hopefully. Bye.